Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 21 of Confessions of a Market Maker. I'm your co-host, Ray, a.k.a. All Day Ray, a.k.a. the Eastern Seaboard's beloved son. And I'm joined here by my omnipresent co-host, the man preventing more blow-ups than the bomb squad, the man who provides more edges than a granite countertop, the degenerate who's getting into some trouble up in Regina. I'm talking about JJ. JJ, how's it going?
Good, Ray. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. And we're bringing to you an episode, a Thanksgiving episode. We're going to pay, we're going to pay homage to the guests we've had on the show and also to others in the industry that we're thankful for. We're also going to discuss current market conditions as well on this holiday week. So we're recording this on Wednesday the 27th with Thanksgiving being tomorrow. You know, I'm not a big fan of the meal, Jay, but I do enjoy football all day. I got to ask you as a Canadian, what's it like Thanksgiving in Canada?
Well, for me, Thanksgiving is it's a time that Canadians don't get angry, but Thanksgiving in the U.S. I really love because I have family down there and I had a lot of clients and it was always nice. And when U.S. Thanksgiving rolls around, it was kind of those times I wish I was in the States because it's, I don't know, I always enjoyed it. So it's nice. And it's kind of boring up here because everybody has to work. It's not Canadian Thanksgiving, which happens in October.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have the day off. Everybody else is working. So, it's a bit slow for me that way.
Yeah, sure. You gotta, it seems like this is a standard question, but what's one of your favorite dishes with Thanksgiving?
I'm just, because I come from a South Asian background,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind the turkey and everything every once in a while. It's kind of cool. We're not the best at cooking that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I go to my friend's house and, their parents, have the turkey meal and everything like that, it's always nice. I like the whole thing. It's, it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. So today we're going to go through our illustrious list of guests we've had on the show, and say a few things about each. I guess you could, put what we're thankful for, what we enjoyed about that podcast. And so our very first guest ever we had on the pod was Peter Resnicek, a.k.a. Shadow Trader, former hip-hop manager. Jay.
The one and only Peter Resnicek,
Mm-hmm.
the man who's solely responsible for keeping my heart beating on this earth by introducing me to Market Profile and Jim Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot say enough about how thankful I am that I met him and that we had him on the show too.
Mm-hmm.
Taught me a whole new way to see the market, taught me how to keep my heart from going into arrhythmia when I traded.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, led me to who I consider a national treasure, Jim Dalton.
Mm.
And so I'm very thankful. Couldn't be more thankful. Peter and Brad. I got to give out a shout out to Brad, but Brad hopefully will be on the show one of these days. But
Yes.
We love those guys.
Yeah. And it was, it's funny, like having Peter on at that time, I was still very new to trading, like on this journey I'm on. And I didn't realize the magnitude of who he was when we had him on, now being into it. And I'm just grateful he came on. I'm grateful for his weekly recap videos.
Yeah.
And so shout out to Peter Resnicek. And for the listeners, that was episode number 4.
Oh, and I got to plug his daily market letter too. It's how I learned profile. And if, I highly recommend it.
Absolutely. So yes, so that was episode number 4. If you guys want to go back and listen to that one. The second guest we had on the pod was Mr. Sex and the City himself. Frequent visitor to the White House. Best-selling author of the book The Buy-Side, Turney Duff.
Oh, my brother Turney. I hope he's doing well. Love you, Turney. We love the Duff here. on Confessions of a
Mm-hmm.
Market Maker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Turney and I had had a very interesting evening once in New York.
And where, but where was it again? I don't remember.
It was
Where?
well, let's see. It was at a house of ill repute. Um, thank you again to the traders from Knight Capital. Dave P and the boys who introduced us. And later on, he ends up writing a book, and we reach out to him after meeting him in the late '90s. Turney and I, we had an interesting evening that night,
Mm-hmm.
and great guy. And I love his book. Everybody, the buy side, definitely go check it out if you want to know what that life is like as running. He was one of the leaders of the healthcare mafia back then, and
Mm-hmm.
if you want to know if you want to know why the market's getting marked up the way it is, it's because guys like him are bucking for their Christmas bonus. So
Right. Right.
Turdy was great, and I love the way his book is amazing because he bared his soul, and
Yeah.
everybody likes to talk about, I did this and everything's great, but nobody wants to talk about those times at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're like, oh my God, what have I done with my life?
Yeah.
And, and I really respect him for that.
Definitely. Definitely. It was, it was such a well-written book. It really puts you in his like shoes, in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And, those were my thoughts going in before even talking to him. And then it was no surprise once talking to him how much due diligence he put into writing the book.
Oh
And
yeah.
you know what I mean? How much he dove into writing and just the techniques and et cetera. And yeah, man, just a genuine guy, humble. It was a pleasure, absolute pleasure having him on. And there was a lot of laughs. So go check that one out, guys. That was episode number 6. If you want to go back and listen to that. The next guest we had on was Stephen Goldstein, host of his own podcast, Alpha Mind, trading performance coach. And also, JJ was a guest on the show as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. You know, it was nice having access to someone like that, because usually you don't, unless you're sitting at a hedge fund or someplace like that can afford to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
They're really to clean up your head, and to help you realize what's going on, and just being around him, it was great, because we're talking about the markets and London and things like that. It was fascinating, and being on his show was wonderful, and we're really, really happy to have him on the show, because it gave a lot of people who don't get access to the mental part of the game a look, and then they can go further and dig around. But boy, trading is like riding a motorcycle. If your mind is not right, boy, things can get dangerous really quick.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. For me, like, for as much effort and studying I've put into my mental game, because all my years playing poker, I came away feeling, I just had such almost like an enlightening type of feeling, like aha moment, like after talking to him on the pod and listening, and also just listening to his podcast as well. I'm a regular listener of it. And, since then I've seen a bump up in in my mental game, and my performance,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with poker, and so, just gotta give a shout out to Goldstein, man. We
Yep.
appreciate you here at Confessions. And that's episode number 8 for the listeners. Our next guest we had on was hedge fund titan and high stakes poker player, author, producer, philosopher, plucked right out of the Renaissance, Bill Perkins. JJ, how was this one?
It was great. The nice thing about Bill is he was part of one of the most historic trades in history,
Mm-hmm.
on that natural gas trade with himself and John Arnold and Brian Hunter on the other side. And I mean, you don't get access to, once again, getting access to someone like that who,
Yeah.
We trade the market. It's nice to talk to people who can actually move a market.
Mm.
or make a market. And that's that was fascinating. And another case of somebody who's done so extremely well. And I think that goes through every single guest that we've had on this podcast has hit the top of their game, and they're so humble. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, when I was prepping for this podcast, like, you just kind of jot down some notes of what I wanted to say about everybody, and I swear I was like everything I was writing humble, humble, humble.
Yeah, just for the I mean, most of these people have they'll have forgotten more about trading than you and I'll ever know, and it's just and just how calm they are, and just and so willing to share their life experience.
Hmm.
You know.
Hmm. Yeah, it was really good to hear, because I know Bill from poker, and that's what's funny is I think he's more popular in the poker community than he is within trading, because I
Hmm.
guess retail trading community is just a little different, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was great to hear that side, like you were talking about, that he being on the other end of that historic trade, and hearing those things. And I just always enjoy listening to him talk, like real refreshing, practical approach that he has to life. I also like how like multifaceted he is.
Definitely.
And where we're in a world where a lot of people just are real preaching like specialization. Oh, stick to this. So it's cool, and also looking forward to his book
Yeah, me too.
and having him back on when he's going on his little press tour. So shout out to Bill. That was, for the listeners, that was episode number 10. If you want to go back and listen to that one. The next guest we had on was a 20-year successful retail trader, Tom Canfield, aka Don Cherry.
Don Cherry.
Yeah, that's why I know I didn't have a nickname for him when we did the podcast, because I didn't
Oh,
know how
okay.
I didn't know he was like, oh, you better have one for me. I was like, oh shit. So there we go. Tom, if you're listening, Don Cherry. There it is. I had to give him a hockey guy.
Well, I think he's with his family. I saw on Twitter that he's taking this week off and he's with his family. And
Uh-huh.
man, what it was so refreshing to have him on the podcast. He's totally the real deal. He's been in the trenches since the charts with the graph paper and a pencil, and he is really he's like the voice of reason on Twitter.
Yeah.
There's a couple of
Yeah. Right.
guys that there's him and Jimmy Jude. They just say it like it is. They don't have time to pussyfoot around.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and man, I miss that because everyone's so sensitive now.
Yeah.
I miss those guys, because those are the kind of guys that train me on the desk, where you do something and they give you a shot across the head and go, "What are you doing, you idiot?" Right? And you can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a pleasure. And he's been in our room a little bit when he has time, and we always love his perspective. It was a treat to have him on the show.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like you said, just realness, no fluff with him, and
Oh yeah.
and that's why I think at least my theory is like why because I asked him. I remember asking him on the pod. I'm like, you're not one of these guys who is trading from exotic locations. You're not posting your P&L. Like, how did you
Oh
garner?
jeez.
How did you gather
Oh.
such a large following? And I think it's because, I mean, he didn't have an answer. I remember he was kind of like, oh, great question. I don't know,
Mhm.
but I believe it is his realness. It's refreshing to see
It is.
somebody, because when he says what he says, you already know, like, oh yeah, I felt
Yeah.
that before. I've been through it,
Yeah.
because listening to his come up, he went through I mean, what he said, he lost 50K.
Yeah. I mean,
You know,
he's everything that we're going through on a daily basis, as a newer retail trader, he's gone through. And it's nice when you have people going, okay, yeah, I've been there. This is what you got to watch out for. This is why you have to watch yourself, watch out for this, watch out for that. And it's, really wonderful, you
hmm
know,
okay,
yeah, really wonderful to have him in the, amongst our friends. Definitely.
absolutely. Shout out to Canfield, aka Don Cherry. That's episode number 13. For you guys who want to go back and listen. The following guest we had on was, excuse me, Wall Street Trading CEO, a man who had a front seat to the collapse of 2008, former poker grinder, sit and go Scott Sam San Emeterio. Jay.
Once again, access to someone who actually structured the mortgage-backed securities that people bought in their portfolios. So he was actually one of the guys who read the documents, the offering documents, because he had to prepare them. So having insight like that from someone who was actually building the products out, wow. And another guy who's been at the top of his game and is so humble and so easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Um, because as a trader, you sit and wonder, how did they do this and how did they do that, and and then you sit with him and it's very eye opening. It's it was really really cool, and his new business sounds like an up and comer too.
No, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, the first time I spoke to Scott, it's like we connected right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, the word that comes to mind when I think of Scott is just, just sharp, real
Mm-hmm.
sharp in all areas that he's involved in. And maybe I'm biased because he's a poker player, but the business that he's got going on, the potential that there is emerging sports and trading, the ceiling on that, I imagine, is high. Best of
Mm-hmm.
luck to you, Scott. We appreciate you coming on the pod. That was episode number 15 for the listeners out there. Next guest we had on was the Moose. JJ's mentor, a real estate mogul, chairman of 2 publicly traded companies, Harmel Riot.
Yes, the Moose Harmel, and also like my adopted older brother. Wow, what have I not learned from this guy? Geez, he met me when I didn't know common stock from livestock, and he taught me how to make a market. He taught me about liquidity. He taught me about work ethic. He taught me about doing research, doing your own research, and he taught me how not to spend a lot of money when doing research. And a little hard work goes a long way. Man, I've learned so much from him. One of my first clients. Um, he's been with me pretty much through my whole career, and very, very thankful to have him and his 2 brothers who, when after 9/11, when I went from having 2 Porsches and a penthouse to living above an Irish bar and taking the bus, his older brother, Sammy Davis Jr., would drive me to work every morning because I didn't even have a car. So, that family, they've treated me like family, and very grateful to them.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I mean, I could just hear it in his voice, man. Like his, really just appreciated his desire to, conduct himself ethically, in business as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was inspiring as well to hear his rise to where he is now, starting off in the mailroom.
Yep.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I was very moved after that podcast. So shout out to Harmel, aka the Moose. That was episode number 17. The following guest began her career making markets in options, started her own hedge fund, featured in Market Wizard series, Mrs. Sardines, Linda Rashke.
Wow. One of my idols when I read Market Wizards, she is the one who actually gave me the idea of getting a job close to the exchange so you could finally meet somebody and network your way into a job as a trader.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of her that I got my first job in the stock market, and because I read that in Market Wizards, and I never thought I'd ever get to actually to interview someone that I had read about, so many years ago, that was wonderful. That was absolutely wonderful. And boy, oh boy, you spend 10 minutes talking to her and you realize how lazy you are. Right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
realize how absolutely lazy and sloth-like you are. This lady will outwork anyone, and her passion for the markets is just
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. And, and she's a floor trader, so she's got a great sense of humor, and she's used to us animals, and she's used to, corralling animals like us. So, it was absolute pleasure to meet one of your idols.
Yeah. No, it was funny. Like even when we just first started talking, or before we started recording, she was already just firing off.
Oh yeah.
It was funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny how many times me and you have talked about, like, her preparation and her
Oh God.
focus. Like,
Yeah.
just when we just talk personally, we're like, it's talking to her. It made me, I feel like, yeah, I don't put the TV on in the background anymore when I'm trading. She's like, oh, hell no,
yeah.
I never do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand people. I'm like, oh shit, like I do that.
No. She's got that laser like focus, which is what you need to be successful.
Yeah,
Because this
absolutely.
business, the thing about this business, it's like we bring you in, we put the blindfold on, and we spin you around. But if you can focus, and her focus is just, and it comes from a love of what she does.
Right.
So it was just inspiring, absolutely inspiring. And she, and that's another person who is a legend and who's down to earth.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very down to earth, easy to talk to, fun to talk to. And shout out to Linda. And that's episode number 19. And now our most recent guest, 41 years of multifaceted industry experience, executed orders for Paul Tudor Jones, Souvlaki stick trader, Damon Pavlatos, and also a husband to Linda.
Yeah, exactly. That's, I mean, what a couple, eh?
Yeah.
That
For real.
It's absolutely amazing. And I really, really liked having him on because, the guys who came off the floor when I was starting on the trade desk are the ones who trained me, and I really miss floor traders and their sense of humor and their perspective and the stories from the old days, and him telling us how this clearing firm went down, and the story, and he knows because he was at the epicenter of this, and it's as a younger trader, you always wanted to, like, wow, I wish I could have traded on the floor of the Chicago Exchange, because that is just that's something else. There's the New York Stock Exchange, and I have a friend of mine who's an ex-specialist, and a couple of friends who were on the floor, and that's a beautiful historic place. But there's something about that energy, like, even on television, when you see those pits in Chicago the way they used to be, and how many people they had in it, that energy is just wild. So you have people who traded through historic times, and like Damon, and he's built software companies, he's done this, he's done that, so it's nice having that kind of perspective. And once again, someone who's extremely humble, and it was a lot of fun to have on the show, and he'll be joining us next week, hopefully. In our education room, so that'll be, I mean, the one thing about these people that we've had on the show, especially people like Damon and Linda, and they'll give you'll talk to them for maybe 10-15 minutes, and you'll learn about 5 things that will completely change your perspective about the business, because they just drop these little golden nuggets. And for for someone who's only been trading retail 6 years, I mean, I've been in the business since 93, but retail trading, and I was telling someone today, I said, I've manipulated stocks, I've done all this stuff, and worked the system, and I can hide a short position for a year, that sort of stuff. But retail trading is the hardest thing I've ever done. And people who are successful at that, and larger retail traders and people who run money and things like that, it's such a treat to have them on the show, because it gives our listeners access to that other side, behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, which retail traders don't have access to. So, like you said, a pleasure. He's just, Damon's just a cool cat.
Yeah, he is. Well, he's a rock star. I mean, the guy was a rock star before he became a trader.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
Just a smooth, even even the story how he said he got Linda to date him, I thought was smooth. I'm just like,
oh,
he's a cool guy.
he's a smooth dude, man.
Right,
He's
right.
smooth,
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I love this story about the Globex machine getting installed in his house.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I also, I like what he mentioned about Globex and how he watches the different regions of the globe and how they
Mhm.
trade, and it just is giving me a different, just another, I guess, another perspective, another way to look at the profile or look at the Globex, which is always good.
Oh yeah, I
So,
mean, look, I mean, you know, he yes, he was Mr. Globex because back
right.
then, when you needed a seat on the exchange to actually be able to trade Globex,
Hmm.
so that you know, so yeah, it's nice to have people who are part of history then teaching you, the ins and outs of that market.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely,
definitely.
and we have a special shout out we have to give to our producer, Baba Yaga, aka Beyond the Trade Steve,
Definitely.
for producing. And yeah, I mean, he filled in for one episode, but it's got lost in the archives, didn't
Yeah,
it?
those are the lost files of VWAP Trader. They'll uncover those in 30 years.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, we really appreciate Steve for all the hard work he does. He's basically like the Energizer Bunny. He never stops working. Yeah, if I wanted to, I could call him at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, I've got an idea. And he'd be like, okay, let's, he wouldn't even skip a beat. The guy is,
right.
and his persistence, if there's a brick wall, he'll find a way to chew through it. He'll come out covered in dust and lime, but just give him a little time. He'll chew through that wall. So
Hmm.
we really appreciate that. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely.
definitely.
Shout out to the Baba Yaga, Beyond the Trade Steve. We appreciate you. Much love. Jay, anyone else in the industry you want to shout out? I know probably your idol.
Of course, I have to thank Jim Dalton for everything. I'm very thankful this Thanksgiving for having that gentleman in my life and who taught me how to view a market, and it has saved me so much heartache. And it's not even about the money, as he says; it's about the emotional and intellectual capital that massive drawdowns and just being in the wrong place at the wrong time get you in trading. And he just, I can't say anything enough. I think the man's a national treasure. And I would, if he's listening, sir, we would love to have you on the podcast. And you know, uh, we look forward to you every time you come into our room. It's like an event for me. So I'm very, very thankful for Mr. Dalton.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, that's when, I'm gonna give a shout out to our room, our trading room. I really enjoy the community, having people to trade with, to talk to. And I just have a lot of fun, honestly. I think we got a funny group of people.
Hmm. Yeah, I do.
And I just want to shout out to all of them, man. Like I really
Yeah.
enjoyed in there.
Yeah, definitely. We've got some very smart people in that room too,
Yeah.
which is it's nice. It's and from all over the world, which is it's really lovely to have to interact with people because retail trading is a very, very lonely experience, especially in education. And we try and educate, but we try and keep it digestible, and we also try and keep it interesting. So people are they don't lose interest and focus, and give people a nice environment to learn in, where it's
Right.
it's not intimidating.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's what's great. I mean, especially me being a new trader, like everyone's very encouraging, supportive of one another, quick to congratulate when one has a good trade, etc. And it's just fun. It's fun how we're able to blend, being serious
Yeah,
trading, but also throwing in some jokes, having a good community. So
well,
just shout out to everyone.
yeah, and that's definitely, yeah, and and that's what I miss about being on the trade desk was that the atmosphere of laughing. I mean, and I never had a job in my life that I loved so much as being on that trade desk. Because it wasn't a job, and you just I never made so much money and laughed at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of fun, and it's nice to have a little bit of laughter in life because it keeps the stress down.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. All right. And we'll move on, but something I was just thinking of, when we were talking before, you mentioned, I was like, oh, it was so great to talk to Linda, like someone who you read about. That's two people two authors we've read about, Turney and her. It's pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Turdy I knew before he was an author.
Oh, that's true. Well, I forgot.
But
I,
no, it is, and but it is. I have to, it is really nice to have authors on the show.
is that I gotta ask you, is that night, this infamous night now that you that you and Turney hung out? Is this
Yeah.
going to make it into the book? It has to, right? This has to be.
Yeah, I suppose I should write about it. It's from what we can remember. Well, I'll have to call him, and we'll both have to take some ginkgo or something like that to jog our memories of that
There you go.
evening. Because not only was it a long time ago, but the night traders were they spared no expense in changing our alcoholic equilibrium. Boy, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a fun evening. It was
I'm
like
sure.
it was like one of those Harold and Kumar movies.
Yeah. It's. I'm sure it was. Sure it was. And so this week, Jay, holiday week, and we're still making all-time highs. Anything that you want to say about what's happened this week?
Well, I've been, I sound like a broken record, and it's just what we learn from looking at value, which is price over time. People are accepting these prices. We spend time up at these highs, and then we just keep going higher and higher and higher. I myself, I am scared to death of staying positioned long this market, but you have no choice.
Yeah.
And the structure underneath us is absolutely horrible. If somebody breathes on this thing hard, but the thing is, the sellers have all gone away, and they're just marking it up for year end. And as we learned from Turney, those portfolio managers need to make a good bonus this year because that new Ferrari is not cheap. So, and everybody will want one. And, hey, these people spend a lot of money. So they're going to run the market, and also don't forget too that, we have very low interest rates. The world is awash in cheap money. People are financing companies that will never be profitable. Um, and so that money all has to go somewhere, and there's a smaller number of public companies, and the ones that are public, their floats are so locked up. I mean, if you look at Apple, less than 1% of the float of Apple trades on a daily basis. So it's not like they're when you lock up all the stock and you have nothing but buying, the market has nowhere to go but up. you know
Mm-hmm.
you have to think about things like BlackRock, Fidelity, those people. They don't have to sell stock every month to make their bills. So
Right.
what they buy, they're putting that away for a decade. It's not coming out, and then the company goes and buys back stock to make them happy and takes the supply out of the float. It's a supply demand thing. The more you choke off supply, it's surprisingly how far you can move a market up when you cut off supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, I mean, just even me like learning like it's tough. It's at least for me, I can only speak for myself, but it's tough when we keep trading up in no man's land.
It is.
Like
It is. It is. It's challenging. When you're making a new high every day or every couple of days, Peter Resnicek always teaches us to look to the left, and you look to the left, and there's nothing but blank space.
yeah,
So you kind of have to let it trade, and then hopefully we get balance for 2 or 3 days. You can trade that. Or you catch a trend day on a good day, but then lately we've had trend days that fail and then trend
right,
up at the end of the day. So
right.
it's been a challenging market to trade. And the other thing too, sometimes the market will hit an all-time high on negative breath because they're squeezing some short.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very it's not markets are never easy to trade.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're trading like this, it's, and then it's funny because everybody looks at it and goes, oh, the market was at an all-time high. You must have made a lot of money today. People who don't
Yeah, they
trade,
have no idea. Yeah, no
they have
idea.
no clue.
Yeah, no clue. Now, today today could be was classified as a trend day, correct?
Because of my computer problems, I
Oh,
missed
yeah,
most
that's
of
right.
it, but yeah,
I'm pretty sure it
yeah,
was. It looked like it to me.
yeah. I mean,
we might have one time frame down one period, but other than
yeah,
that, we trended
it
up all
was,
day.
yeah, it was, they caught everybody with that weird low in the in the morning, and everybody thought that would be repaired, and heck no, it wasn't. And
Mm-mm.
they just it's very sticky buying that they've got. And we'll see what happens after the end of the month, and as we start into December, whether somebody will let loose some stock. And
Mm-hmm.
these markets, though, there's nothing but buying. It makes me wish I had 100 million shares of something to sell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know
Yep. Yep. And now, moving on to our last segment of today's podcast, we're going to be answering listener questions. You guys can reach us on Twitter, JJ at VWAPTrader1, or myself at AllXDayXRayX, and ask us anything pertaining to trading, to life, to love, to dating strategy,
Oh,
whatever.
jeez.
Whatever. We're
We're-
here for you guys.
yeah, we're the wrong guys to talk about dating strategies. That's for sure. Okay.
Listen, ask your any type of degenerate questions where, we want this to be a fun type of segment, or serious if you have serious, legitimate questions, whatever. But we appreciate everyone who submitted questions today. And so, first question comes from, resident troublemaker, Vuk. And he has
Vukovic.
two questions. Vukovic. He has two questions. What is your favorite stuffing recipe?
Oh Lord.
I'm assuming he's asking me because he messaged this on my Twitter.
Oh, probably.
I don't make the stuffing. I have no idea what the hell goes into stuffing. I'm just a little repelled by the whole stuffing process. Like, whose grand idea was this?
Okay.
But we'll leave it at that.
Don't.
Just know I stuffed the turkey with my strong hand.
Yeah. Well.
Next. Oh, what about you, Jay?
Jeez.
You have anything to say about stuffing?
I've got nothing against stovetop. Hey, it's,
Yeah, stovetop. Yeah, shout out to stovetop. All right, and now Vuko's a real question though for JJ. Obviously, as a market maker, loss management wasn't a serious issue because of how things could be manipulated. How long did it take you as a retail trader to find the right balance of risk reward, overcome the mental harm that comes from losses?
it for me, because I came from a place where I have a lot of scars, bad business partners, deals getting halted, clients, walking away on debits that they owe the firm. I was very, very risk averse. And I had the opposite problem that most people have, is that I didn't want to risk.
Right.
All right. And
Yeah.
even if I saw a trade and it would do exactly, I'd say it's going to go here, it's going to stop, and it's going to move, and it's going to bounce. And I wouldn't take the trade. It took me a long time to get through that. So also coming from the fact that I was raised in Saskatchewan and we used to have competitions here to see whose dad was the cheapest. That cheapness was instilled in me, where I don't like losing a lot of money. And I do realize you have to lose money to trade. That's a part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So that really focused my learning profile and learning where the heck, because we trade in the day time frame, and most of that is trading shifts in inventory. When people get too long, people get too short. Profile tells me where, and price action and watching that and learning structure really helped me minimize my risk, take higher odds trades, and that really helped me. I do see a lot of people who do risk large amounts and trade very, sort of shoot from the hip.
Mm-hmm.
And for people like that, I would say, maybe think about this like, you were running a business. And, for people, like, there are a lot of guys out there and girls who make money in the morning and then lose it in the afternoon. So, maybe think about it like
Tilting.
maybe think, maybe think about it like you're in a business, right? Like say you were a bakery and you sold out all of your inventory in the morning, right? And you have, whatever you made in the morning. Now in the afternoon, would you take that money and just go throw it in the street, or would you like put it in the bank because it's your business,
Hmm.
right? So maybe kind of think about things that way, because trading is a business.
Absolutely.
This is not the Bellagio.
Hmm.
You know,
No, but shout out to the Bellagio. It's really
it is a
nice
nice,
hotel casino.
good memories. Yeah, nice hotel.
Legendary poker room too, by the way.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah,
That I
yeah,
did
yeah,
not know. I wouldn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
know where to find it.
Oh, so some of the most like legendary games get played there, live poker
Ah,
games.
very
So
Ocean's 11.
yes, yes. But I always love when you say treat trading like a business, because I forget who I heard it from or in poker, but like that's what I was taught in poker. No, it's like you're managing your own business. You are your own
Mm,
business as a poker player, and I just it makes so much sense on or like viewing it. At least for myself, and obviously you concur with that. But yeah, I think it gives you a different approach, a more sound approach to
oh,
things.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we forget, because it's about money and things like that, and so much of the marketing is geared to, selling the dream and selling people hope. And we forget that it's a business, it's a craft.
Hmm.
There are no three easy setups. It's not like 10-minute abs, there's no 10-minute, success in trading. And it's really marketed to people that way. And I always use the medical school analogy. When you enter medical school, do they give you a scalpel and go, hey, let's go do some brain surgery first day? No, you're not. That's not how it works. And trading's the same way. It's a craft. It takes time to learn. There are ups and downs. It is a marathon, and it's not for everyone.
Hmm.
It's really really not for everyone. I have a lot of friends of mine, and they say teach me how to trade, and I'll start talking, and within 5-10 minutes they've completely lost interest. It's like, oh man, I thought this was going to be easy. You push a couple of buttons, you make 10 G's. I'm like, no, that's not the way it works, right?
Right.
It's marketed and sold to people, unfortunately, that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Right.
but that's that's one of the things.
Hmm. Hmm. Big shout out to Vuk. Vuk, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for the questions. We appreciate you. Next question comes from Calgary Chad. I think a great question would be based around what JJ thought while trading 2008. I know he fed order flow, but only a select number of people knew the market would crash. What was it like during the crash, and what did you see on the screen? Thanks.
you know 2007, 8, and 9 were really, really good years for me, because I was working a couple of deals that, the guys who, guys would come to me and say, hey, can you help me make a market and, help distribute this stock, and, I'll give you 1 million shares or whatever. So I had those, contrary, I was not invested in anything. I was basically selling stock in a couple of companies and making markets to sell stock into.
Mm,
And it was very good, because as the market was going down, retail was very interested in lower price stocks, because they had lost money and they could try and make it up by trading a penny stock. So that's the mentality that we came into. And I found it, the other thing about me is, when I started seeing the market go down, I had been through 9/11, and which was which really ended a lot of my career. And just, it took me from the penthouse to the poorhouse. And so I vowed that that would never happen again. So I was really, I was watching kind of from an outsider's point of view, like going, oh my God, and then you'd see things like Bear Stearns closing down. And, I had read Alan Greenberg's book, and, Ace Greenberg. And, I had, this sort of, fascination for these Wall Street firms, and then you see them crumbling. And it was, and it was all, the instrument of destruction was the security that Louis Ranieri came up with from Solomon Brothers in the 80s from Liar's Poker, which is the reason I became a trader. So it was very surreal.
mhm.
But 2008 was a great year for me, because I didn't touch anything on the big board, any of that stuff. I wasn't trading retail at all. I was making markets. So, I was fortunate at that time.
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
lot of
no.
people got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when I saw Chad ask that question, I was like, I never heard you talk about it before, like so or have anything yeah, I don't
No,
think I
because
have. Yeah.
because I made a lot of money. I
Yeah,
only
right.
talk about the times where I got my butt kicked, to kind of
Yeah.
give people, because I mean, I don't, I never find it useful going, oh yeah, I did great,
Right.
yeah, I'm a, it's like, yeah, I'm a
Exactly.
hero. No, it's not. No, I was fortunate. And I had, I had this really, really crazy client who was like a character out of a John Wick movie. And he was the one. He would call me up and he'd go, JJ, we need some distribution. And he was a pretty rough guy, and he hung with a rough crowd, and was a real character. And the funny thing was, he was a very talented guitarist. He looked like Meatloaf, and he had a band, but he was also a stock promoter. And this guy could sell. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. I don't know if that's politically correct. I apologize in advance. But but he had some pretty rough characters around him and stuff like that. But I tell you what, when I had my heart attack, these guys were like, they were criminals, and they came to see me. They were the only ones who came to see me in the hospital when I was sick. So, they were loyal guys, and
Right.
he's not on this planet anymore. So, it's he was the one. He gave me 1 million shares of stock just to help him make a market. And the stock went to a couple of bucks, so I had a really good year, and I was insulated, and I was very grateful to him for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Shout out to you, Chad, Calgary Chad, for the question. We appreciate you, Chad. Next question comes from Wing Girl Trade Podcast Educational Room. What is next on the horizon for you guys?
Well, we're just
the big screen.
the big screen. I don't know. We're grateful for what we have, and we just want to, we really want to help people learn how to see the market, and we really want to help people have access to people like Jim Dalton, people like Peter Resnicek, people like Linda, Damon. We'd really like to bring retail traders and shine the light on the people who have been foundational in this market. And, this is who you should be listening to. This is who you should be, studying. And, and then we're kind of there as like and then if you have questions, come and we'll try and help you out, and, and bring those kinds of people to shed their light on this mystery that we call the market.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Wing Girl Trade for the question. Next question comes from our good friend Gapa down in Mexico. How do you know if you are making progress in trading? How do you measure your results, and what is realistic to expect? With so much talk about how little people make it, how can you tell if you are one of them? What results should you be showing to justify being a profitable trader?
Wow, that's a
good
good
question.
one.
Yeah, good question, Gapa.
That's a good one. Who was saying that after a year, if you've broken even, you're doing pretty good? I think it was Damon, or it could have been Pax, one of those guys, one of the older guys. They said that. The other thing about this is, of course your P&L tells you how well you're doing, but also you're sort of, are you trading intelligently, or are you trading emotionally? Are you doing the work? Is your edge working? And if it's not working, then how can you refine that edge to work? And the market changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course your P&L is telling you how you're doing. We're judged in black and white that way. But, and I know Gaspar is a young guy, and he's just started out in this. And, I put to him that, it's a marathon, and he's got 20, 30 years of trading ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wouldn't really worry about your performance just yet, because you've only been doing this for a couple of months, maybe a year. Just be happy when you trade well. Even if you get stopped out, if you take a trade and you followed your plan, and even if you get stopped out, you've exercised good risk management and you followed your plan, and that's going to happen, you know. And just focus on learning how to trade well. Focus on learning, what's behind all the pretty lines on the chart. Learn the mechanics of the market. Learn what's going on, and that will really help you. And it's an educational thing, and it never ends.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to a gentleman today who runs a software company, and he's the same age as Mr. Dalton, and I learned things from him today. And so you learn something every day in this business.
Yeah.
So just keep yourself open to that, and and we thank him for the for the question. Gracias, hermano.
Yes, yes, good, great question. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. I think like my take or like where my mind first went reading the question is, and a lot of stuff I draw from my poker background, but which I think is a lot of it is very applicable to trading. And like one of the things that was like hammered into you when you're learning poker is don't be results oriented. Focus on the process.
Yeah.
And if your process is correct, then the results will come.
Yeah, and here's my brain surgery analogy again.
Mm-hmm.
When you become a surgeon, you don't focus on the money, you focus on learning how to operate well,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you're a trader, they used to, reminiscences of a stock operator, right? So you're learning how to operate in these markets well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Think about it that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And think about it like, I'm starting out, I got 50 years ahead of me, right? Enjoy the ride,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Because that learning process, and we saw that from Linda. You see her enthusiasm, after 38 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? It certainly doesn't look like it's waned. She still has that zest for the knowledge, right? And I think if you can capture that, and if this industry is for you, and I know who we're talking about here, because he's in our room and he asked some very good questions, and he's really into it because he's in university and he's listening to us on his cell phone, so it's he'll get there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And like a lot of the people we've talked to, they say number one thing, screen time.
Yeah,
So just get in the time, Gappa. Like you said, you're smart. You're gonna get
exactly.
there. Shout out to Gappa. Thanks for the question. Real good question. Next question comes from lowercase numbers. What advice do you have for degenerates with terrible bad trading habits?
Oh, well, it's hard because it's hard to pontificate and say, well, you should do this and do that. And I've made every mistake in the book, chasing price or buying at the high, or getting this fear of missing out, and all this stuff. It's really hard. What you got, I mean, if you find yourself being a bit of out of control, maybe stop trading. Stop
Mm-hmm.
trading for a couple of days, right? Take some time off, and then think about, and then start to think about really what you want to accomplish in the market, right? It's not a lottery, and it's definitely not, it's not sitting at the slot machine and pulling a handle. It's and I know I know he's a pretty good trader because he's another guy who's in our room. So if you find yourself kind of losing it that way, take a break, right? The market's not going anywhere. It'll be there tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to trade. And if you find yourself being influenced by other people who are telling you how to trade, just ask them one question. Go, look, you really want me to trade so much? Why don't you fund me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Give me your account password and I'll trade your account the way you think I should be trading.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how quickly they shut up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
And I guess the advice would be would pertain to someone's particular bad habit, But yeah.
But first thing is be aware of your bad habit. Maybe write it down, right? My bad habit is being biased. So every time I'm biased, I'll be like, oh, I'm biased. I'll tell everybody around me, oh my God, I'm really, really short biased, or I'm really, really long biased. And they'll go, what are you nuts? Like value's higher. Why do you want to short this? And they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So you need, maybe have somebody, who can help keep you in check.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That always helps.
For sure. And he has another question, I guess. And how many degenerates does it take to move a market?
Only one with a big enough account.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Shout out to lowercase numbers. Ever the jokester. We appreciate you. And with that concludes this episode of Confessions of a Market Maker. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review it for us. If you're interested in learning market profile, if you're keen on trading a liquid market, if you got a small account, come join JJ and I at microefutures.com. JJ, parting words.
I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and have a wonderful holiday and be safe out there. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us. And we really appreciate all the kind comments. And we really look forward to, bringing you more guests that, help shed light into the dark corners. And thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you to all the guests that have come onto the podcast. Thank you for all the listeners for listening. Really appreciate you guys because we really enjoy doing this podcast. It's a lot of fun. So we appreciate that. And also shout out to our trading room as well. Much love, guys. And so for the St. Petersburg Heartbreak, I'm Steve Butabi. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.